Welcome back YouTubers to my channel of an everyday life of an Aspie. If you haven't been following me right now, I am doing the next series over, which is all about epilepsy, since it's coming up close to the Epilepsy Awareness Month, basically worldwide, basically of wearing purple, wear it out loud as an awareness of epilepsy. As we know that, you know, there will be many people that suffers from epilepsy from any age, and there are a lot of reasons behind why it is. But in all further ado, I welcome you all to my channel. I'm AspieAnswersAll. I welcome you newbies and oldbies alike, basically, and also that the reasoning behind my channel series of what I share is to create an awareness and obviously understanding behind the certain conditions that people may go through, as well as just, you know, creating mental health awareness versus, you know, just giving you an understanding and know how I work with my everyday life story with Asperger's syndrome, OCD and the like. So therefore, basically right now I've covered so far in the epileptic series basically what is an aura, what is a seizure, basically what is epilepsy, the definitions of all these, and sometimes the clinical other names probably for the epilepsy and whatnot. Now I'm going on to the causes and triggers of epilepsy right now. So before I put it out there though, as a disclaimer, I'm no medical professional, I'm just a normal everyday Joe blogs, basically just addressing you to all just basically certain classic signs and symptoms, and I want to address to you all of certain everyday mental health disorders that comes our way, so that we can be prepared to know and help someone in need, even though we need to help ourselves as well. So if we see any of these clinical signs or symptoms in everyday conditions, maybe we can seek help for them, or even so seek help for ourselves. Also, basically, do feel free to actually seek medical professional advice if it's a second opinion. If you don't, you know, wish to agree with my, you know, tips and advice or what have you that I address to you all, basically. And I also don't condone anyone to do self-harm regardless. All I want is to people to feel safe and happy and be at peace with themselves. So no further ado, as we know, there are various factors or reasoning behind the causes of epilepsy versus the triggers, and in this day and age that, you know, some of them are really unreasonable or undeniably true to the fact that, you know, some of the medical professionals are still trying to maybe do some sort of research to maybe prevent them from happening, of seizures and tremors and whatnot that happens along the way from any age or stage of life. But as we know, basically there will be a time of all these factors or causes basically of epilepsy. So therefore the main ones that I've done basically are the neurodegenerative conditions such as Alzheimer's and dementia. Number 2 is head traumas from a car accident, or just basically some sort of trauma that you had basically from drowning or what have you. Number 3 is brain conditions such as your stroke, or just brain tumours in general, from either a cancerform brain tumour or just a brain tumour itself. Number 4 is genetic predisposition. Number 5, prevents seizures, i.e. for example here is sleep deprivation or photosensitivity, so sensitive to the light, obviously that photosensitive means. Sleep deprivation is obviously not enough sleep or lacking of sleep. Number 7 is drug withdrawals. Number 8 is metabolic abnormalities, which would be including, for example, your increased or decreased glucose levels, or another example there is your increased or decreased sodium levels or salt levels. And then last but not least on this is body infections such as IV or meningitis. The triggers for epileptic seizures to persist are, as we know, that many patients with epilepsy, however, may have learned experience that certain situations make them more likely to have seizures than others. These triggers do not typically, however, cause seizures in the general population. In other words, what I'm trying to say here is, you know, once someone has to have epilepsy for these triggers to lower the threshold sufficiency such that an epileptic seizure may result. For example, a normal person could have seizures themselves as a part of a serious illness, like a double form of pneumonia, and once the illness is over, they have no more seizures. It's gone kapoof, you know. That person would not typically be considered to be an individual with epilepsy, however. Epilepsy affects everyone differently, however, you need to bear in mind. In most cases though, epileptic seizures seem to come out to of left field with no rhyme or reason. Although we look for triggers, they are not usually found. They are, however, special circumstances in which some patients have learned that they can more or less expect the seizures to come on that insert, and they do their as best they could, and as best as they possibly could, shall I say, in these everyday situations to avoid what might possibly cause these triggers of seizures. Okay, so the possible seizure triggers as such is maybe number 1, late nights and lack of sleep. Again, as I've mentioned in the causes of triggers, pretty much of obviously the insomnia, or shall we say basically the provoked seizures, which are that sleep deprivation. It could be the late nights, also due to the lack of sleep. Significant sleep deprivation is probably the most consistently observed trigger for seizures for many clinical patients with epilepsy. The best examples is in patients with juvenile myoclonic epilepsy. Some of these patients essentially never have spontaneous seizures, and also that occur after sleep deprivation. Neurologists commonly see a brief flare-up when a patient begins university for the first time. These students have increasing independence as a part of their university life. Some will party up all night long, basically get up early in the morning to do assignments. In other words, they are burning the candle at both ends, and may find that their privilegedly good seizure control has disappeared. Many neurologists, though, however, may also see a mini epidemic and may endure, coinciding with high school graduation parties. For some students, this is the first time they have been up all night, or most of it, and they will end up have too much to drink. So, in other words, it will lead to the next one of the most possible trigger of it is your alcohol and recreational street drugs. Excessive alcohol and binge drinking can trigger seizures for a time, as well as your common street drugs. Even in those people who do not have epilepsy, it is not uncommon to have patients in the emergency room, however, with tonic-clonic seizures. What I'm saying here is basically, with this in mind though, like after exposure to certain hardcore party drugs, be it cocaine, crystal meth, or other stimulants like speed, it is more complicated to actually differentiate on this. Pretty much those patients who report a worsening of their seizures when they have been drinking usually have not slept much that night anyway, due to their late night partying, drinking, staying up late and whatnot, may provide they might have a seizure earlier in the morning. Another key factor here is stress. It's well known for patients with epilepsy to commonly report that they may have more seizures under times of stress. This has been proven to be a very difficult connection to prove it from a scientific point of view. However, the problem is that patients are often able to record times of significant stress in which they had not had seizures at all. Upon analysis though, most of these patients report they have slept very poorly under those times of stress. In other words, they take their stress to their bed and will toss and turn and have poor quality of sleep, which may result in a seizure. Another one is flickering or flashing lights. It is well publicised in many reports that for patients that suffer from epilepsy, and these triggers of is the flickering or flashing of lights that can trigger it. One will often see poster signs of caution in environments in which patients with epilepsy may be exposed, but those are obviously blown out of proportion. Those who are affected by lights usually have a hereditary form of epilepsy, so it could be genetic, given from the mother or father gene, but none of that have been acquired. They do not have structural cause for the epilepsy. They usually have normal intelligence and development, and typically have an EEG that shows an abnormality during the photostimulation portion of the test. Another one is basically for the triggers is basically fevers and flu-like illnesses. There seems to be an increase in seizures with illnesses, but the mechanism is not well understood here, based on the fighting infections and diseases, however. High fevers are most often relevant in babies and young toddlers. In fact, they are referred as variable seizures and aren't thought as a type of epilepsy. Another one is for the trigger is hormones or menstrual cycle. About 1/3 of the women may have more seizures semi-predictably in the days just before their menstrual cycle, considering that half the people with epilepsy are women. It is disappointing that we have no consistent and effective treatment for this situation, however. Another one is for the trigger is certain medications and supplements that they're using. There are very few medications that will trigger the seizures, but there are some notable ones. Zyban, a drug to assist smoking cessation, can lower the threshold on a patient with epilepsy and should be avoided at all costs. All tricyclic antidepressants such as Eilpesy or Trophanol in high doses were thought to lower the seizure threshold. This is to be outweighed against the well-known clinical observation that untreated insignificant depression will bring on more seizures itself. One often hears a precaution that coffee, tea and pop containing caffeine can trigger seizures and should be avoided. In fact, stimulants suppresses seizures. When drug combinations were common 30 and 40 years ago, amphetamine or dexedrine was often mixed in the anti-seizure medications such as Ritalin, which Ritalin is known as a stimulant, used to be more widely prescribed to counteract the sedating effect of the older drugs. And now, the last and not least is basically forgetting anti-epileptic medications. This is the most commonly considered cause of a breakthrough in seizure in a person who previously had a good seizure control, whether or not they have missed their medication. It is easy to become somewhat casual when things are going well and not think of missing a dose here and there. However, the effect of it all is such that medication levels may fall into the subtherapeutic range and seizures can result. If a patient discovers later in the day they have missed their morning dose, they should take it then. If it is not discovered until the regular bedtime dose, they should take the morning and the bedtime doses together. They will not be overdosing and they will still get their 24-hour requirement if necessary. Last but not least, in conclusion of all these triggers is basically there are many triggers to guard against, but in reality the only predictable thing about most seizures is that obviously they are unpredictable, but that they can be treatable to an extent. So basically that ends the causes and triggers of this epileptic seizures. Give me the like for thumbs up for support and showing that you're engaging. Follow me on Twitter or Facebook, AspieAnswersAll. Also feel free to comment there on AspieAnswersAll if you feel for me to address something or just you feel someone to talk to. Basically, also feel free to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so. Basically, for weekly, daily updates. Also share these videos because I feel in my heart with some of these videos that I'm sharing as an awareness, understanding and everything else that people need to be, addressed to this so that we can carry it on further. So basically, love what you do, do what you love yourself, love one another, take care of yourself, be good to one another. Until next time, have a great day. Thanks for watching and I'll see you all soon.